What's up fellow hunters, Nox here, welcome to another exciting build video. Today we're going to talk about 3 fantastic endgame greatsword builds. Before we jump in, keep in mind that these are the final form endgame builds, so they might not exactly be easy to make. If you're looking for builds without augments, I recommend checking out the Title Update 5 video after this one. A link will be at the end of the video. Let's get into the builds. We're going to kick things off with the Godslayer. This is the ultimate max DPS build for Greatsword. To get all the essential skills, we need a talisman with either 2 levels of Froscraft or 2 levels of build-up boost. If it has 1 level 2 slot, that is already enough. I'm using a Frostcraft level 3 talisman because I happen to have one, but like I just mentioned, it's not necessary to have one. Weapon of choice is the Lucent Nagakuga Greatsword. 395 attack, purple sharpness, 20 poison, and great slots. As an alternative, you can also use the Scorned Magnamalo Greatsword. It has a bit more purple sharpness, but it will limit the build in other ways. To increase our damage, the first thing we have is a max affinity setup. Critical Eye, Weakness Exploit, and Bloodlust will set us at 100% affinity on weak spots. Along with that, we of course have critical boost to get the most out of our critical hits. In case you don't like using Bloodlust, you have the option to switch out the waist. You can use the Primordial Malzeno waist instead of the Risen Shogaru one. It's a good trade-off, but it will lower the overall damage potential slightly. Then we have max attack boost for a big increase to raw attack. Mail of Hellfire level 1 will add another 15 attack as well. Since we're using a status weapon, we of course have build-up boost. This will increase raw damage by 10, 15 or 20% if the attack applies status. You can keep this at level 1, but going for level 3 if you can is recommended. Next is one of the core skills of the build, Froscraft. This will increase damage by 5 to 30% depending on the charge level of the gauge. That is a massive amount of extra damage on Greatsword. The gauge decreases when landing attacks but recharges very fast when the weapon is sheathed. This makes for a perfect combination with the Power Sheath switch skill. The move allows us to quickly reposition while sheathing our weapon at the same time. It also increases attack by 10% for a short period of time. Then we have Offensive Guard. This will give us another 15% damage after blocking an attack at the right moment. This one is a beautiful combination with the Strongarm stance, allowing us to counter attacks with a block and then unleash an incredibly powerful attack ourselves. And to make it even better, we have Wirebug Whisperer level 3, which will greatly increase Wirebug recovery speed. This makes it possible to use all of the Silkbind moves a lot more frequently, which in turn increases DPS. And then we also have Blood Awakening. This will increase raw attack and element when regenerating a certain amount of HP by landing attacks. At level 3, we get 15 attack and element when recovering 50 HP. And after recovering 150 HP, that buff gets increased to 40 attack and 30 element. For this build, we of course only get the raw attack, but it's still a very large damage boost. This will last for 30 seconds after activating the first stage of the buff. You don't have to be missing any HP to activate this either, so you can even activate this when your health is completely full. We have 2 ways to regenerate HP with attacks. The first one is making use of Blood Right. This will give us health regeneration anytime we attack a broken monster part. And the second way is of course by having Blood Blight. We get affected by this when fighting afflicted monsters. Having Blood Blight will add a health regeneration effect to every one of your attacks. Having Blood Right at level 3 will allow us to activate Blood Awakening super fast. And it also makes the build incredibly comfortable to play due to the massive amount of health regeneration. The effect of Hellfire Cloak will give us a free knockdown on the monster. However, the skill is completely optional and can be replaced with anything else you might like. The sweet spot for Hellfire Cloak would be level 3, so you don't need level 4 either if you decide to use it. As a bonus, we have Intrepid Heart for safety and Coalescence for extra damage. Here's what you can do if you don't like using Strongarm stance or simply prefer an old school Greatsword playstyle. All you have to do is take out Offensive Guard. Now you can add something like Focus into the build for example, or anything else you might like. This is what my current augments are looking like if you're trying to recreate a similar version of the build. Right underneath where it says augmentation status, you can see which augmenting method I used. The main goal for this build is to get Frostcraft level 3 and as much build-up boost as you can get your hands on. Everything else is gonna be a bonus. Keep in mind that if you're using a Frostcraft level 2 talisman like I showed earlier, that skill should be the first thing to max out. For me, the chest, arms and legs all have 1 level of build-up boost. You can actually use the skill plus augmenting method on the legs as well if you want to make this a bit easier. You can sacrifice as much of the part breaker on it as you like. The Coalescence on the waist is not a requirement. This could have been any other level 2 skill from the decoration list as well, since that would free up one of the decoration slots. The Mail of Hellfire on the helmet is just a bonus. If you can't get your hands on it, it's nothing to worry about at all. Next, we have the Retaliator. This is a ridiculously strong rage/slash build using the exact same parts as before. Weapon of choice is the Lucent Naga Greatsword again. Our base damage essentials are the same as for the previous build. We have max attack boost, Froscraft, Blood Awakening, and a big stack of affinity-based skills. But since this one is specialized for using Rage Slash, we do have a few differences. The biggest one is Sneak Attack level 3. This skill is an absolute hidden gem for any Rage Slash build. When hitting a monster from behind its middle point, we get a 20% damage boost. That is massive. For most weapons, hitting a monster from behind its middle point seems kind of unpractical, but a Greatsword with Rage Slash is a different story. Since we are basically able to absorb monster attacks, it actually becomes very easy to trigger Sneak Attack. All monsters have attacks that move them forward. So if we are charging a Rage Slash, we're gonna absorb that hit. And because the monster moved forward, we are now either behind it or at the side of it, activating the Sneak Attack and giving us a huge damage boost. Let me demonstrate. Taking this hit for example, which was basically 5000 damage, 20% of that came from Sneak Attack, meaning that skill just gave us a 1000 damage increase to that attack. That is insane, especially considering how cheap it is to fit this skill into the build. And in case you don't want to use it, you can still just replace the decorations for anything else you might like. Another very nice addition here is Resentment. As long as we have any amount of red health, this will give us anywhere from 5 to 25 additional attack based on the level of the skill. Taking a hit while charging Rage Slash always leaves us with a bit of red health, making this a very nice combination. Having Blood Right at level 3 is a huge comfort on Rage Slash builds. The same thing goes for stun resistance. It's not necessary to keep it in the build, but I do highly recommend it when using Rage Slash. Quite a few skills in the build are actually up to personal preference. The two that stand out the most are Sneak Attack and Focus. If you decide not to use one of them, you can max out Resentment instead. You can also make yourself more tanky and harder to kill by adding Divine Blessing or Max Defense Boost. Both are great options here. The augments are the exact same as before since we're using the same parts. So for this one, you won't have to augment any new armor pieces, which is great. But if you want to have a bit more defense, you can make a second helmet and get something else beside Mail of Hellfire. In that case, I would recommend one level of Powder Mantle. If you're enjoying the content, a like would be super appreciated and really helps out the channel. Next, we have the Raging Bull. This is the strongest Adamant charge/ build. Weapon of choice is the Amatsu Greatsword. The reason we are now using this weapon is for the massive raw attack and the special effect that all Amatsu weapons have. They get a 10% damage boost to all Silkbind attacks, which is of course perfect for an Adamant charge/ build. All of the damage essentials are the same as for the previous builds. The only big difference is that we're not using build-up boost. Instead, we now have maxed out Mail of Hellfire, giving us the full 35 raw attack increase. Aside from that, we now also have Powder Mantle as a bonus damage source. Burst is on the build as well, but the skill is honestly too inconsistent on Greatsword to be factored in properly. If you haven't tried out the Adamant Charge playstyle, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. It can be a lot of fun and also feels really refreshing. These are my current augments. None of the augments for this build are actually required or necessary here. Since we can't use build-up boost, one of the best choices is of course maxing out Mail of Hellfire. After that, I just added one level of Powder Mantle, but that is completely optional as well. Here's a quick look at the switch skills. Skills number 1, 3, and 5 are the exact same for all builds. Everything is using the tackle, charged/combo, and power sheath. Only skills number 2 and 4 change depending on the playstyle, so make sure you're grabbing the right ones in those spots when saving the build. As I mentioned at the start, if you're looking for Greatsword builds without augments, I recommend checking out this video right here. These builds are going to be easier to make and still have amazing damage output for endgame. Thanks for watching, take it easy, and I'll catch you in the next one.